name is Jim Bernau. I'm the founder and CEO of Willamette Valley Vineyards, and you're looking at the original planting that I did, started back in 1983. And this is the first 15-acre block of Pinot Noir. Some of the vines I got from my fellow winemakers, and then the 667 and 777 clones from Burgundy. Robert Drouin, when he came to Oregon, recommended those two clones, naturally occurring clones in Burgundy, and it has been one of the factors in why Pinot Noir grown and Chardonnay grown in the Willamette Valley has taken its place among the finest of those varieties in the world. I have assisting me in this presentation as well, Christine Clare, who's our winery director. You'll hear a little bit more about her later in this presentation. And also Mandy Morgan, who is our marketing leader. There is a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Yesterday it said chat, today it says Q&A. So I'm not sure what it says on your screen, but that is a feature where you can ask questions and they will answer them. And if they want me to answer those questions you asked so everyone can hear the answer, or if they will leave those questions up that they want me to answer, and I will answer them after this presentation to you as a group. So don't hesitate to go ahead and use that feature to ask your questions. I've also received questions emailed to me. I just got one just a few minutes ago from David Wheeler. Thank you, David, for your question. And I'll make sure I get to that as I go through and hopefully answer it for you. Now, this presentation is about our preferred stock offering. It's we're selling the shares for $4.95 a share directly from the winery. It's a $9.3 million offering, Series A. The stock is traded on the NASDAQ under the symbol WVVIP, but we find that we don't need to incur the cost of investment bankers or brokers in selling the shares because the shares are really in quite high demand, and we expect this offering to be closed out shortly. In the materials that you're receiving, it's very important for you to read the prospectus and to read the financial statements that accompany the prospectus, the 10K, the annual report, the 10Qs, so that you are aware of our industry and the risks associated with investing in our industry and in this company. This preferred stock pays a 22-cent per share dividend, so its yield is about what, 4.4% to investors at this present price. And I'm going to speak a little bit later about the financial condition of the company, but you can see for yourself, and you can keep track of it if you'd like. All you have to do is you can go on to the our website and read those, and as well as the Securities and Exchange Commission's website. We've been listed on the NASDAQ since 1994 and have been reporting quarterly since the beginning of this company. Now here you can see me on the hillside there. You know, the Willamette Valley has extraordinary climatic conditions for growing cool climate varieties. Here you see me in 1983 training the vines up on the trellis. And then you can see in the background that soil. We have in this particular location, we have what's called a Jory and Nikaya classification, which is ideal. It's very well drained. It's iron rich and rusted red, as you can see. And the other thing about the Willamette Valley that's important, besides our different soil profiles that are suited very well for these varieties, but also our climate. In the North Willamette Valley, we're about 1 degree warmer during the growing season than Burgundy, but we have one remarkable difference, and that is that we receive almost no rainfall during the month of August, which is the time the vines go through a period of veraison. where the color change occurs and the metabolism of the vines shift from growing their canopy to ripening their fruit. And of course, at that time is actually the rainiest month of the year in Burgundy. So there's distinctions that you'll find in the fruit, the aromas and flavors of the wine as a result. You know, one of the things that has made Willamette Valley Vineyards so successful, it's probably one of the major factors, is how we're owned. When I started Willamette Valley Vineyards and I wanted to grow it into a world-class winery, I thought the best way to do that was to organize wine enthusiasts as owners. I came from a modest background, worked my way through college in a sawmill, but I knew that I wanted to build a world-class winery. And I felt that if I organized wine enthusiasts as owners, we could together do that. And that's exactly what's happened. When I first started, I was able to convince the Securities and Exchange Commission to allow me to do the very first Regulation A self-underwritten public offering in the country, qualified by the SEC in 1988. We completed that offering in 1989. And since that time, we've grown through the support of wine enthusiasts. So we're very unique in that regard. You know, I had one of my shareholders when I was first starting years ago joke that he said, you know, Jim, he says, this is the only stock I own where I can drink myself to profitability. Now, of course, he was kidding, but it really is true that our shareholders have a remarkable impact on the success of our business. In fact, 25% of all of our direct sales made by the winery are purchased by our preferred stockholders. Now here in this slide, you can see Oregon, you can see the different American viticultural areas, so designated by the federal government in this image. And then you can also see the location of our vineyards that we own or we lease with a right to purchase. And what I'm going to do in this presentation is walk you through some of those, each one of those. We actually own now over about 1,000 acres of vineyard land in either the Willamette Valley and in Walla Walla. You know, you probably are wondering, and I didn't get one of the questions regarding our unique application for ownership. As you know, there's a subscription agreement form, which we're asking you to fill out. And then we, of course, if you want to put it in your IRA, we ask you to talk with your IRA administrator first. Or if you want to put it in your brokerage account, we would like you to talk with your broker first. We do have many shareholders that do hold their shares in that way, but we do know of some brokers or IRA administrators that don't allow this stock to be included. So we ask you before you make a subscription to please inquire first. But in this material you've also received a one-page ownership application. And the reason why we've included that is because we want shareholders of Willamette Valley Vineyards that add value to the company. And so we are interested in taking on and selling ownership preferred stock to those who are wine enthusiasts, those who will support their winery by converting their dividend to a wine credit, which means they get 15% more value on top of their cash dividend, or joining the wine club, or supporting the winery in other ways. And that's why we have that. It's unique among public companies to do what we're doing, but it adds value to the company and as a result to all shareholders. You know, here you see this image of these vineyards, and you should know that 60% of our production and sales is Pinot Noir. But one of the things that's really important about our industry is the trend toward wine enthusiasts buying directly from wineries. And for people seeking out Oregon wines, there's a remarkable story to tell, not just in one part of the Willamette Valley, but in several different places in the Willamette Valley, in the sub-AVAs, but also in the other AVAs of Oregon. You know, Oregon has climatic conditions that are as diverse as France, and even parts of Italy and Spain. And so there's great opportunity for us to serve wine enthusiasts by telling those special stories from those unique sites in those growing regions. Now, this is just a slide to show you. Of course, you know, I've started many years ago, back in 1983, and over time, you know, the quality of Oregon wine and Willamette Valley Vineyards wine has gotten better and better. In fact, when I first started Willamette Valley Vineyards, I thought it was a logical name to name my vineyard. Later, the federal government designated the Willamette Valley as an American viticultural area. And so our brand has a lot of strength as a result of the time that we've been in the market growing over these years. Here you can see a slide, because I do get questions. And one of the questions was, well, Jim, how is the shutdowns related to the pandemic affecting your business, since all of our industries essentially lost all of its restaurant on-premise business this year, a good part of it. And a lot of the hospitality business. You know, many gatherings where high-end wine is shared and enjoyed have been curtailed. But what has happened, at least for Willamette Valley Vineyards and several other wineries that have long-standing trusted brands, is that they've actually performed very well, as we have. In fact, we filed an 8K with the SEC to answer that question, so we could provide you the detail and just how much success we were having this year. Now, this slide just represents our commitment to sustainable practice. You know, the thing we want to do is we want to tell the Oregon wine story, but by serving and while serving as stewards of the land and our communities. And that's the lens that we look through, and that's the lens that we act through in everything we do. And so here you can see Randy Hillier, our facilities manager. He's holding a orphaned juvenile barn owl that Jan, my wife, was successful in arranging with the Cascade Raptor Center in Eugene to place these barn owls at our vineyards to help patrol and take care of the voles that are in the vineyards for us. And you'll also find kestrels also in the boxes that you can see. The other person in the image, Joe Perez, has served as the chapter president of the American Wine Society, which is the nation's most prestigious wine enthusiast organization, where he's given us quite a bit of help. That's just one example of owner involvement, wine enthusiast involvement in our enterprise. And here along the bottom of the slide, you can see our commitment to sustainable practice. For example, we use natural cork in all of our enclosures. High quality natural cork is the best enclosure for wine, especially wine you're going to cellar. But the other thing is that natural cork is very, very important for us to use, because it helps support all the communities and families that look after the cork trees of the Mediterranean, which are second only to the Amazon in their importance to their biosphere. And so we need to get more consumers using natural cork rather than using plastic or screw caps, because use of a natural cork reduces the carbon footprint of a bottle of wine by 25%. You think about that. All that carbon that they're pulling in out of the atmosphere, all the oxygen they're pumping into the atmosphere, billions and billions of corks are made and consumed each year. And so it's very important for us to continue to support production of high quality natural cork. We also, for example, are supported by solar and wind power as well in all of our operations. Those are just some of the things that we do that are important to being responsible in how we grow our grapes and make our wine. Now, here's one of our vineyards, 12th and Estate Vineyards. Bill Fuller, who's pictured here at the bottom of the slide, is the founder. Formerly the winemaker Louis Martini. He told his boss, he said, I can't make great Pinot Noir here in Napa. I've got to go to Oregon. Think of the courage that took in 1973 to put his family in the station wagon, to follow them in a pickup full of cuttings to the Willamette Valley. And here he found Tualatin Estate Vineyard. It's actually located near, just northwest of Forest Grove. And you can see in this slide the coast range there that creates this unique microclimate where he found this site where they were growing strawberries because of its warmth in the fall. You know, Bill Fuller's now 83 years old, and he's still making wine with us in the cellar. We merged our businesses back in 1997, and it was really one of my big breaks. He's the first winemaker from Oregon to receive a top 100 listing in the Wine Spectator. He's the only winemaker in the world to have won from this vineyard Best of Show Red and Best of Show White for his Chardonnay and his Pinot Noir from the London International competition. This next vineyard is Elton Vineyard. We lease this vineyard and have an option to purchase it out of the estate. Dick has now passed. Betty is there on the property now. I went to school with Betty back in 1978, and we talked about our dreams of planting Pinot Noir. We planted Pinot Noir in the same year. She did with her husband on her family's property, and I did down in the Salem Hills. And Elton Vineyard has since become one of Oregon's most recognized Pinot Noir vineyards for quality. And we have now the full operating lease of that vineyard. And when they decided that they told me, Jim, we know this lease is going to outlive us. So we want you to buy the vineyard out of our estate, but here's the deal. You have to get the vineyard appraised for its market value at the time. And then we want you to pay that price by dividing it in half to Oregon State University's viticultural program and the other half to Chemeketa Community College's wine program. So I want you to think about these two people and how they really are reflective of many people in the Oregon wine industry who are committed to the long-term growth. But just think of that, their entire life's work. They're giving back to education, giving back to young people, studying enology and viticulture to grow an Oregon wine industry. And when you look at this picture, you'll see down in this picture a white rock in the middle of the vineyard. So that's what I want to show you next, which goes to helping tell the Oregon wine story. Because one of the reasons why Pinot Noir and these other cool climate varieties grow so well in our soil has to do with a cataclysmic event called the Missoula Lake flood. That chunk of white granite originated in Canada and was picked up by a glacier that advanced into the United States. And then later the flooding behind the Clark River knocked the nose of that glacier off and released 500 cubic miles of water, which flooded across eastern Washington and followed the Columbia drainage down to the Willamette, down to the ocean. And it backed up into the Willamette Valley, filling the Willamette Valley up like a bathtub. And so when the water receded, it left chunks of ice that had rocks in it like that, and as well as a whole lot of other pieces of soil and rock in the Willamette Valley. And so this Pinot Noir vineyard at Elton is planted on that bathtub ring. And here you can see Dick O'Brien. He's passed now, but here he's standing there in front of that rock. They planted the vineyard around it. This is one of the wines we make. I think I told you about the importance for making small batch wines. That we make wines of sometimes no more than 2 barrels in size. And these kind of really exclusive, unique bottlings are very important to wine enthusiasts. They're looking for that level of quality. This wine's made by Isabelle Mounier, one of Oregon's top winemakers at the Carlton Wine Studio as a consulting winemaker for Willamette Valley Vineyards. And she has her own brand. She's formerly from Seven Springs. And some of you on this webinar may know her, or certainly her reputation. And we're lucky to get her guidance. This is a vineyard that's right next to Elton. When Betty's parents passed, her brother inherited half of the farm and she inherited the other half. Well, they Dick and Betty O'Brien talked Betty's brother into selling me part of his inheritance, this Ingram Estate Vineyard. And we have now, we own, let me see my notes here. We own 86 acres, of which you see here in this image. And then we've leased another 110, which you can see just on the right upper corner of your screen, back behind the little image. If you've got my little image up on the screen, we've leased another 110 over a long-term basis. And now we have that all planted. It's probably one of the largest Pinot Noir plantings in the Willamette Valley, contiguous plantings in the Willamette Valley, all sustainably farmed, all live certified. And one of the unique aspects of this vineyard is that it's a higher elevation vineyard. And of course, as the climate changes, that's why we're thinking ahead. So we've planted at higher elevations, which means it's cooler. One of the advantages of this eastern face of the Eola Hills is that it faces the morning sun, and it has its back to the ocean breezes that flow in from the Pacific, which flow over the top of the Eola Hills and then come down into this vineyard and really dry the vineyard out, which makes the potential for disease very low. And that's because it's drying out those vines in the late afternoon. Now this is Loaiza Vineyard. This is a new vineyard for us, and we named it after Efren Loaiza, who has been, now I think it's his 41st harvest here between the two companies, Tualatin Estate. When we merged with Tualatin, we got Efren, who'd been there since he was 16 years old. And he is now manages all of our vineyard operations. And to honor him, we named this vineyard after him and his family, who've been so important to the staffing of our vineyards. You can see we're principally farmers. And so the largest single group of our employees are those who tend the vines. And you can see here Efren planting those vines. We had our first harvest this year. And one of the things that's really unique about this particular vineyard is we're trying to provide leadership in many areas of sustainable practice. And one of the things we did was we built a catchment pond so that the rainwater in the winter that would normally just go out the river and down the river and out into the Pacific, we've captured that rainwater in a catchment pond that has a very large apron on it. And that is sufficient water for us to drip irrigate these vines, these young vines in the summer, which means we didn't have to access water out of the river during the summer when the fish needed the most, and we didn't have to drill for water and take it out of the ground. We're teaching others now about how this can be done and why it's such a good practice. Here's another picture of a vineyard we own called Pambran Vineyard. This is named after my fourth great-grandmother and grandfather. They were the leaders of the Hudson's Bay trading post here back in the early 1800s. And so you can see in this image a number of our shareholders there. They came out to help us plant Cabernet Sauvignon vines. Now this is on the Oregon side of the Walla Walla Valley American Viticultural Area, and in the distance you can see the Seven Hills. Some of you may be familiar with the Seven Hills Vineyard, and then further off, behind my picture, is the town of Walla Walla. We have 87 acres total in two parcels. One of them is here and next to the Leonetti, the Figgins Vineyard, and the other one is just west of Drew Bledsoe's vineyard. For those of you who watched football, NFL football, you probably know all about Drew Bledsoe and his brand in Walla Walla. Now this image is just to show you the picture there of the founders, really, of the Walla Walla winemaking industry. Here you can see Marty Clubb on the left of LaCole, Norm McKibben of Pepper Bridge and Amavi. In the middle is Christine Clare. She's our winery director. And there's Chris Figgins there, and many of you may know of Gary and Nancy Figgins, his parents, who started a Leonetti cellar in the Walla Walla. It was the first commercial winery established in Walla Walla in 1977. And they've gone on, as Chris has gone on, to make some of the finest wines in the world. In fact, all of these winemakers have. But the reason why I wanted to show you this picture was to let you know that Christine Clare has been responsible for developing this partnership in our ability to obtain this land from them, because we bought this land from them in what's called the Savaine, and then also to get their help in farming as well as making the wine in Walla Walla. So it's been an exciting adventure, and our shareholders love getting this in their choices among the wines they get to choose for their wine club. This is an image of the brand Pambran. And this is an image of the wine that we're making. Now that Pambran wine, of course, is very rare and hard to get, and you'll see it really only available to through our direct sales to our owners or our club members. And so it's very limited in its production. Here, this brand is Métis. This brand you'll be able to find in retail shops as we increase our production. And it's named after the offspring of the French Canadian trappers, which Pierre Pambran was, and the natives. And my fourth great grandmother was Cree, and they played quite a role in the development of Canada and this area as well. And they certainly played a big role in the success of the Hudson's Bay Company in maintaining a very successful relationship with the first Americans, the natives there. Now this vineyard, Maison Blue, is located in the Rocks district. It's a very small little AVA. You can see there in that cutout the rocks. It was developed. It's really created by the wandering rivers of the Walla Walla, and so this is really at the base of that hill, that slope that I was showing you. It's a very small AVA. It's one of America's newest AVAs, and regarded as among the most promising, where Syrah performs very well. And we just had one of our first harvests off of this. We're working with the city of Milton Freewater to build something like the Carlton Wine Studio, but a place where aspiring young winemakers can develop their brands, but also to serve for us as a place for winemaking, for a tasting room, a restaurant, and for lodging. This piece of property is just off of Highway 11. It's got Highway 11 frontage between Walla Walla and Milton Freewater, as well as it's right on the Sunnyside Road, which is the entrance into the Rocks AVA. We have 37 acres there. And here you can see Maison Blue, and I don't know how many of you know of this brand, but it's again hard to find, but as an owner or as a club member, you have access to this wine. It's remarkable quality. Here's our shareholders again. They're out celebrating our first harvest at Bernau Estate. This is it's approximately a 15-acre vineyard of Pinot Noir that is to be used to make Method Champenoise sparkling wine. And so they're celebrating a plan to build a dedicated winery for the biodynamically grown Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, and Pinot Meunier at this location for a Method Champenoise sparkling wine. And you heard me talk a little bit about Isabelle Meunier. Her husband, Andrew Davis, from Radiant Wine Company, is the person who's helping us do this. He was formerly at Argyle for a number of years, just a remarkable winemaker and focused on teaching winemakers how to make world-class sparkling wine. And you can see that some of our first efforts have done well. Now, this image is a rendering artist rendering, architectural rendering of the facility that we're building there on this property. And this is one of the key reasons for this stock offering, is to make sure that we could fully fund this development and provide a special location for Willamette Valley Vineyards. Now, for those of you who know a little bit about where we're located, the estate is located south of Salem in the Salem Hills. And as the industry has grown to 700 wineries, with many visitors coming from all over the world, the center for the wine industry has really centered around, it's gotten smaller. The wine industry, in a way, has formed a business cluster around Dundee, Newburgh, and McMinnville, kind of right in that area. And so now people can come to Oregon and they just literally run out of time before they're able to see anybody else. Whereas years ago, people there was only a handful of us, so people would make the trip around the valley to see us. And so what was important was that we really plant our flag, our brand flag, in this area. And so this piece of property is unique in that it has just the ideal growing conditions for ripening Pinot Noir with lots of flavor and aroma at around 18.5 bricks because of its location and its soil. But it's located just up on the uphill side in the Dundee Hills off Highway 99. And we're working with the Department of Transportation to widen the Highway 99 for the entrance to this winery. And my wife, Jan, she's leading this construction project. And here's where she is right now. She's working on making sure this facility gets built, and it's well underway. We expect to be open for a soft opening in early 2022. Now, this is just a map to show you over the many years that we've been publicly owned, how many wine enthusiasts we have and how many club members we have. And as you can see, they're all over the country. And it's one of the reasons why we have so much strength. This is one of our initiatives to go out and tell the Oregon wine story. One of the things we've learned is that there is a real opportunity for our shareholders and for wine enthusiasts for us to take the show on the road. And so this is a prototype. This is our first prototype of a micro winery that we built in Folsom, California. You can see in the cutout there, it's built in a recreation of an old locomotive roundhouse in the historic district of Folsom, California. And in the bigger picture, you can see what looks like it came right out of Jules Verne's Nautilus submarine, a wine blending system that we built so wine enthusiasts would have an opportunity to try their hand at putting blends together so that they could learn themselves in a very easy and engaging way about the impact of putting different varieties together to make a red blend. And this is for a brand called Natoma, which we believe will well eclipse, be over half of the sales of this outlet over time, because not only do we want to tell the story of Oregon wine to Californians, we want to be respectful, and we want to make sure that we respect their local growing conditions and the advantages that they bring to particular varieties. And so we felt that was certainly a much better approach in how we took our story on the road, and it's working. Here's the brand, Natoma, and of course you probably know some of the story. The American River is where the Natoma Lake is located, which is really just a dammed portion of the American River in downtown Folsom, and that's where gold was discovered. And there was a huge vineyard, almost 2,000 acre vineyard that was there in the late 1800s. But when they discovered gold underneath the vines, the roots of those vines, they tore them all up and dredged them out. And so that beautiful vineyard was lost to history. And so we have, in a way, resurrected the name Natoma and are making wine again under that brand. One of the things I wanted to do is to answer just a few business questions that I did get in this during this presentation, as well as those sent to me earlier. And I wanted to make sure I drew your attention to some of the financial information that you should receive, or you have access to. And one of them is our balance sheet. And that balance sheet is on page 33 of the 10K, which is the annual report. This is the 2019 annual report. You'll find in the balance sheet on page 33 that we have 68 million in total assets. We have 19 million in total liabilities. So we have 49 million in owner's equity. And a good part of that is retained earnings. $22 million is retained earnings that has been accumulated to add to up to that 49 million in owner's equity. So as you can see, we're a solid company, and we've been growing carefully and conservatively with using our shareholders' money to grow our business. And it has produced really good results. Now, for our common stockholders, it hasn't, we have a very low PE. And part of the problem is, the reason why, is because our common stockholders are hanging onto that stock. And so it doesn't have a lot of liquidity. It doesn't have a lot of activity as a result. And so we think that's part of the reason why we have such a low PE. Our PE of our common stock is, I think, is almost half, not quite half, of what the industry, the alcoholic beverage industry, trades at right now. But we do provide a calculation for EBITDA in our financial statements, and you'll find that on page 25. And the reason why we include that is because many financial analysts use EBITDA and a multiple of EBITDA to arrive at the value of a company. So we just provide that information to investors. And if you look at the report on page 25, you'll find it's 5.668 million was our earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. So, for the size of our business, we're performing very well. And on page 34, you'll see our net sales at 24.7 million, our income from operations at 3.7 million, net income at 2.5 million, and income per share to the common stockholder after the payment of preferred dividends is 30 cents a share. So I just wanted to, that helped might answer some questions there. And one of the questions I received from David Wheeler was, he said, well, Jim, wouldn't it be better to use these resources to increase production rather than increasing your retail outlets? Well, a big part of the reason why we're increasing our locations is to go out and find new customers, because we've always put the horse in front of the cart, and the horse is consumer demand and the cart is production. This company has never had any problems in finding the resources necessary to increase production. There's over 700 Oregon wineries. There's over 9,000 American wineries. So it would be unwise to increase production until you had a growing market that you could continue to support that investment in production assets. So that's what we're doing. We're being very careful to respond to the market and how it's changing. And what's happening is more and more wine enthusiasts are buying wine directly from wineries, and they're doing it from wineries who make very storied, very unique and special wines, as I've demonstrated in this presentation, what we are doing. Now, there is on the website what's called FAQs, Preferred Stock Offering FAQs, FAQ, and we have listed a number of the questions we commonly receive, and as well as their answers. And I just wanted to have you think about this, is that please think about if you are a wine enthusiast and you're very interested in learning about wine or supporting the wine industry, this is a perfect way to do it. Because if you drink wine, you might as well own the winery. You get 25% off as an owner your wine purchases. And then if you convert your dividend to a wine credit, you get an additional 15% value on top of that dividend. You have access to unique bottlings and activities that others don't have access to. So I appreciate your interest in this, and I'd like you to think about joining us as owners. I'm going to take a look now at these questions that they've left for me and see how I can answer them. Oh, there was a good question about what happened in the weather this year. You know, we had a historic event. Some say it was a 100-year event where in the early September, we had an east wind of over almost 65 miles an hour. There was a very dry east wind that greatly reduced the level of moisture in the air and fanned the fires that are normally occur in our Cascades from lightning strikes. And those fires then grew in size toward the Willamette Valley and caused a great deal of smoke. In fact, our tasting room, we closed and we sent our workers home to stay home safely away from smoke for 11 days. But the only thing we found is we found that there was really more fear than there was fact in any concern about smoke damage. We did 40 test fermentations, and we found 41 test fermentations, and we found only 3 to have smoke effect in the resulting fermented wine. And so the thing it did do, though, is that the California wineries that do buy Oregon fruit, you know, there's a lot of Oregon wine that's made in California. They canceled their contracts fearing smoke taint. And that turned out to be a real blessing for us, because what happened was we came to the aid of these growers who had their contracts canceled. We put out the word. We said, look, if you've had your contract canceled and you don't have insurance, contact us. Let's see if we can help you. And we took in 22 growers that had lost their homes for their fruit, many of them only a few days' notice before harvest. But that was really a blessing to us, because Mother Nature had greatly reduced the yield because it rained during bloom. And so it turned out to be a godsend for us. And we have this just remarkable fruit and wines resulting in the cellar. The next question is what is the minimum holding period for purchase shares? You know, there is no minimum holding period for purchasing the shares, except in a couple practical constraints. One is it takes us time to get the certificates issued by the transfer agent. And so it takes time. They're way backlogged in issuing these certificates. And so you'll have to wait after, you know, because this offering will close out in December, and then it will take time for the transfer agent to catch up in printing those certificates. So just as a practical matter, it will take time for that certificate to arrive to your home or your office. The other thing to think about is that if you are trading a stock that has a dividend, you probably want to have the dividends qualified. That's what they call qualified under the IRS rules, which requires you to hold that stock for a particular period of time so you get the lower capital gains rate applied to the dividend. And then it says, also, Willamette Valley Vineyards has been profitable for the last consecutive quarters. And what I can do is I follow the SEC rules on this, obviously. We only provide investors what the public gets to see, which is the Qs. So you should get the Q, the most recent Q that we've made available and have filed with the NASDAQ and with the SEC, and that will tell you how we're doing. And we're doing very well. As you look at it, you'll see that we're having our best year ever. Does share ownership require wine club membership? What we're asking is we're having to sift through all those people who make application for ownership, and we are favoring owners who are willing to support their winery through their purchases or in other means. And so we're selecting people on the basis of their commitment to take their dividend as a wine credit or to join the wine club. Now, mind you, you can, in the future, obviously change your designation from a wine credit to a dividend. And obviously, you can discontinue your membership in the wine club. but we hope you don't, and we hope that we will demonstrate to you the benefit of remaining as an active consuming owner of the winery. And it says, do you have any plans to develop new customers in Florida? Yeah, absolutely. You know, there's an opportunity actually all over this country to tell the Oregon wine story. And we're working really hard on how to do that. Now, you've seen an image of our first prototype that we're doing in Folsom, California, and we're not stopping there. So it all just depends on how long it takes for us to responsibly make sure that what we do is of high quality and well thought out and well properly developed and also tested with time. So we're careful in how we grow, but we also understand the opportunity of the growth that's in front of us. Those are the questions that I had. I've had you now for almost 50 minutes. Looks like I've got another question here. And that was, is there a requirement to join the wine club? And I think I've described that to you, that we are selecting owners who are making that commitment when we first accept them as owners. So that, you know, what we're finding is we're finding nearly all of our owners are supporters of the winery in some fashion. Most of them buy the wine either through the club or through the use of their wine credit, or they're owners of liquor stores, they're owners of restaurants, they're gatekeepers in the community where they're supporting telling the Oregon wine story and also Willamette Valley Vineyards or our other brands. That's a real fundamental aspect of our winery that makes us very unique and also very successful. So it's really to the benefit of all shareholders that we continue on this path of developing a world-class wine enthusiast organization that has world-class vineyards and wines. You know, I want to thank you for participating. I hope you have a great holiday, and I hope you all stay safe with your families during this holiday. Thank you very much for joining me.